folks, Richard Moore, USAGSA. And today I've got with me Lane Reed, and she's here in North Mississippi. It's Itawamba County now, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. And I published a story a few days ago about Lane, and it's under Elizabeth. I was going by some other articles. Her name is Elizabeth Lane Reed, and her debacle down in Noxubee County, Mississippi, with this corrupt sheriff and her being held, arrested, wrongfully arrested, etc. But before I jump into it, I want to encourage everybody to subscribe to my channel and to share what we're doing here. Also, in the description of the video, I'll have my links to the blogs and to the different ways that you can support USAGSA. 100% supported by our listeners and followers. So without your support and donations, I can't do what I'm doing. And as I've said before, I don't get any taxpayer money, but yet I'm exposing these people that are bilking hundreds and millions of dollars from the taxpayers. So follow those links in the description. And remember to share, like, and I welcome your comments down there below. Also, you can see a little heart-shaped thing, and that's super thanks. You can immediately hit that, and you can donate there as well. So, also in the links, I forget this every time. I encourage you to become a Patreon for those that want to stay in the loop and to come on board to support USAGSA. And that's a simple process. Just follow the Patreon link there, and that'll give you full-time, unlimited access to everything that we're doing here. Okay, Lane, I appreciate you. We've had a few conversations here about your story. I know that the New York Times covered it. When did they first cover this? Was it last year?
Last year, yes.
Last year, and they've followed up with giving her the news about the sheriff that was ultimately, that's Grassari, right? Sheriff Grassari down
Brasserie.
Grassery, and he's no longer the sheriff in Noxubee County. I don't know anything about the sheriff that's in there now, so can't speak on that. But we can speak on Grassery and his crimes, and we may never know all the stuff that this corrupt individual is responsible for. And we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about how the state of Mississippi and the Attorney General's office, Lynn Fitch, and of course the prosecutor and the Sixth Judicial Circuit, Scott Cologne, as well as the FBI and Department of Justice, how they've failed Lane miserably. Not just her, but hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Mississippians that are affected by these corrupt sheriffs in the state of Mississippi that have zero oversight. So tell us, take it from the beginning, Lane. You were locked up, and when were you locked up, and what for? And tell us that story there. This is really an alarming and an awful thing to hear, but go ahead and let's hear that.
I was arrested in 2015. I was just sitting at home one day, and
Was this in Noxubee County? You were in Noxubee County. Okay.
I was living in Sugar Lock at the time, which is the next town over from Macon. It's about 13 miles away. Sitting at home one day, then all of a sudden, all the cops, paramedics, state troopers pulled up in my driveway, asked where my ex-boyfriend was, and he was not home at the time. So they got me and these two boys who were also at the home with me, who are brothers, took us to the police station. I didn't have any idea why I was headed there, why they were there, or anything like that. Until I got to the police station, they started questioning me about a murder that had happened a few nights prior. Told them I had no idea about it. I'd heard about it, but didn't know any detail about it. And they said, well, we believe that your ex is the one who committed the crime. And I said, no, there's no possible way. And I said, because we were at home the night of that murder. So they just started drilling me about it.
Did you know the individual that was killed?
I did. It's
Okay.
small. So we know everybody. It's such a small town.
Right.
We knew.
Right. Everybody knows everybody. Right.
I didn't know him personally at all.
Right.
And but yeah, they had just started drilling me, just trying to get me to pretty much say that my ex committed the crime, the murder. And I wouldn't tell them that because it didn't happen. And so I could tell they were getting a little aggravated. So they moved on to the brothers and started questioning them. And I had went home after they questioned me. Well, they showed back up that night to get me and told me that I was being arrested for the murder of Christopher Haywood. And I was totally confused, didn't know what was going on. And later had found out that the two brothers had made statements admitting to this murder, saying I was there, that we drove a girl that we knew her car down there to do the murder and everything. It wasn't until about a year or two later after we got indicted, because they had all separated us from each other when we got indicted.
Did they arrest you that night or
yeah.
Did
it was a few nights after the murder. It wasn't the night of the murder. It was about 3 days later, March 6th.
Right.
The murder happened March 3rd.
Of what year?
2015.
Okay.
And they had separated us up. They put me in Clay County Jail. One of the brothers in Lowndes County, one in Oktibbeha, and they took my ex to prison because he had previous charges for not reporting to see his PO. After we were indicted, we all got moved back to the same jail. That's whenever I encountered the sheriff, Terry Grassery, and his deputy, Vance Phillips. And while I was there, he had let me be a trustee. I was cooking, cleaning the jail, along with my charge partners. He let them become trustees too. That's
so were
when
you held, Lane, were you held without bond or bail?
Without bond. They had formally charged us for capital murder, no bond.
God.
Wow.
And totally innocent, didn't know anything about it. So you're sitting in jail with no bond or a capital murder charge.
Right.
Only in Mississippi. Go ahead.
Right. So I was able to talk to my charge partners then. That's whenever they had told me that the MBI and the police coerced them into writing.
MBI, it's for those, it's a Mississippi Bureau of Investigation.
Yes, they had told me that they had told them what to write down, and then they took one of the brothers' statements, walked to the next room, gave him his statement, and let him copy it word for word. So that's how we were finally charged, because they had admitted to this murder.
So you're in there and you're a trustee, you're cooking and stuff. What happened?
That's when I started getting the sheriff, me and him became really friendly with each other. He started flirting with me, and then his deputy. There's also several of the deputies, by the way, flirting with me and everything, and told me, had made a deal, because I'd asked him, I said, well, can I get a cell phone in here? Because everybody else has one, and he knew of it, that he knew they did.
Well, that's the only way they can get them in there unless they're climbing the fence.
Right. He said, well, I know one way you can get it in. And that's whenever me and him became more than just friends at this point. After I got my cell phone in, which I got through the deputy, not just the sheriff. The sheriff knew it was coming in, but the deputy, I got it through. Me and him were not in any type of relation, anything like that at this point.
Right.
And saw that cell phone come in, asked how I was getting it in and everything. And he said, well, I want a piece of that too, pretty much. So that's when me and him started becoming more than friends. And he saw the phone come in and said, if I wanted to get that phone in, told me what I had to do, which is have sex with him.
And so this is of course, is a crime for law enforcement to have sex with an inmate. Period. So it wasn't just the sheriff; it was a deputy or two deputies.
The sheriff and the deputy.
Okay.
I do need to
So
walk
did
up my
you
phone
did you
right.
feel like that was going to have to be the deal in order for you to have a phone and be able to talk to your family and so forth?
Right, right. That way they didn't have to spend thousands of money, putting money on the wall phone.
Yeah.
So he knew it was coming in, and that's when we had started having sex. So it was just that one time at first, and then
This is the
I didn't.
sheriff. This is the sheriff, ladies. This is the elected official, and the the number one law enforcement, the chief law enforcement officer of Noxubee County, uh, protect and serve, and all that other baloney. Well, they don't use protect and serve anymore. In the jail and having sexual relations with inmate. And you're not the only inmate, am I right?
Right, there were
Or
other
the only
girls.
victim, rather.
Right. I was just pretty much the only one that spoke out. There were other females in there that were doing the same thing with several, with not just the sheriff, but the deputy sheriff and all the other deputies too.
Wow.
They were doing that to get off of their charges that they were in there. If they were in there for minor charges, if they slept with the sheriff or his deputy sheriff, who was the investigator, they had no more charges. They were free to go.
Yeah.
They got out of jail just by
Sounds
having
like Lowndes County.
But they knew, since I had no bond, they knew I wasn't going anywhere. They took advantage of that they knew I wouldn't be able to get out.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, I got that first phone in, and after that I didn't want to have sex with them anymore. So I asked the deputy and the sheriff, could I please just pay money to get it in? No, they didn't want money. They didn't want any money. They said, well, if you want to keep that phone and not get shook down and get charged with contraband, you're pretty much you're going to have to keep doing it.
Oh, they were going to charge you with, right? And that's a felony, contraband, right. And I think it's a felony. I know it's a felony to introduce the contraband. For right. The deputies to bring that in, that's a felony charge. But to my knowledge, nobody's been charged on that. Go ahead.
Yes, and pretty much just threatened me with that. The fact that they knew if I didn't do it any time they wanted, that I would be charged with contraband. They took advantage of that for sure. But anyways, I had got moved from Noxubee County to Monroe County after we were getting ready to go to trial.
And how long was that? Was you there before they moved you?
From 2016 to 2019. So 3 years of this. 3 years of doing it with them. And
so you were in there. You went in at 2015, right?
Right.
So from 2015 or 2016 to 2019?
2016 to 2019, because the first year I was in Clay County Jail.
Okay, I got you. Eddie Scott.
Right. Eddie Scott.
And we're going to do Eddie Scott, yeah, folks.
The same one over there, going on over there. That as
same thing going on in Clay County. So heads up, yeah. Eddie Scott. We're coming. Go ahead.
Right. So I got moved to Monroe County. We were getting ready to go to trial because me and my charge partners had come up with a plan that, maybe if we just go ahead and give these officials what they wanted, which were the district attorney of Noxubee County, Maurice Johnson, and Scott Cologne, if we just go ahead and tell them, hey, yeah, he did it, maybe we could go to prison, get time served, and come home. So we all made all new statements, sent them off, gave them to the sheriff, and told him
that who did it.
That my ex committed the crime.
But he didn't, right?
He didn't.
Okay.
He didn't.
But you were trying anything to get out of there.
Exactly. Trying anything we could. Right. And he gave the statements over to the DA, and they came to meet me in Monroe County and said, well, we're fixing to get ready to go to trial. And since we don't have any physical evidence, because every time we kept coming up for trial, the
Hold
child,
up, Lane. Do you have? Why did they move you to Monroe County? I don't understand that.
um, they told me it was because they were getting ready to go to trial. They needed to separate everybody. But I later found out it was because my lawyer had me moved
Okay.
because I told my parents about I finally told my parents about what was going on between me and the sheriff and the deputy. She called my lawyer to have me moved for my safety.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Because I told my parents because at one time I had met the sheriff in the interrogation room. He had asked me if I had made sure I deleted everything that was in my cell phone, that in case because they were getting ready to do a big shakedown. He said to make sure I had all the messages and pictures and stuff I had sent him, nude pictures and everything.
Well,
delete.
Did he ask you for nude pictures?
Yes, yes, nude pictures, videos.
Wow.
Anything, yeah. So I had told him yes. I guess he thought I was lying.
Yeah.
And this man is very crazy and very violent, by the way, very bipolar. He had grabbed me by my throat, picked me up off the ground, and and with his other hand had hit me in the back of the head and said, "If you're lying to me, just know that I know people, and I know your family." So I had went back to the cell. I called my mother and told her about what happened, and that's when she had contacted my lawyer to have me moved for my safety. Mm-hmm. So while I was in Monroe County, that's when the DA came to meet with me because they had received the statements and they wanted to try to take it to trial. But Maurice Johnson was just saying, are you sure he did it? Are you sure he did it? And I just said, yes, sir, he did. And he said, well, we're going to give y'all another polygraph test because we had took one initially when we first got arrested. And by the way, the NBI said that they lost those results when we got ready to go to our preliminary hearing.
Wow.
Somehow those polygraphs that me and my ex-boyfriend took after we first got arrested, it was about 2 to 3 days after, had mysteriously disappeared. I'm guessing it's because I passed and they didn't want to admit that they screwed up.
Right. So
when he said he was getting ready to give us another polygraph results, test, I then changed my mind and tried to tell him, the original story that we were innocent. We didn't do it. So he said, well, when we take the polygraph, we're going to find out. And he said, but I want to take y'all to the Noxubee County courthouse to do a pre-trial just to kind of practice and let you see what trial is going to be like. So about 2 to 3 days later, they transported me to the Noxubee County courthouse. They had me, my ex, and my charge partners all in the courtroom and they had asked for just one of the brothers, Justin Williams, to stay behind so that they could ask him a few questions. They moved me to the lawyer's room while we sat and waited. They came back to get us, brought us back in.
Was Scott Colomb involved in any of this?
No, sir. I mean, he reinvestigated our case, reopened.
All right, go ahead.
He himself, I thought, was about as crooked as they come, but he did actually do his job on that one. He brought us back in the courtroom. My charge partner was crying. He said, I have a voice recording I want to play for you guys. And he played it. And sure enough, the night of the murder, a guy who happened to be at our house that night who had brought us some drugs, because I'm a recovering drug addict, brought us some drugs. And while he was hanging out with us, he was freestyling, like rapping. He was using my phone to record himself and using one of the brothers' phone to play the music. And they had played that voice recording and you could hear me and my ex talking in the background. He said, do you hear it? He said, is that your voice in the background? And is that his voice in the background? We said, yes. He said, well, that voice recording was made 6 minutes after 911 was called. You live 13 miles from the store. Right. He said, how is it possible for y'all to commit a murder and get back in that time to make that voice recording?
Right.
And I said, because we're innocent, and I've been trying to tell you that this whole time.
Right.
He said, okay, well, we're going to take these polygraph tests, and they took me back to the Monroe County Jail 2 days later, followed up in Columbus with the polygraph test.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody passed. He came in the room and he said, "Part of me believes that you fuckers are innocent," was his exact words. "I'm going to let you go home on house arrest and a $500 bond." And all I could do is jump up and hug his neck at the moment.
How long had you been locked up when they told you this?
4.5 years. It would have been 5 years, 3 months after, because I got out. So if by March, it would have been 5 years.
Right.
From 19 years old to 23. So they at that time they had moved me to Starkville jail because they said they needed me closer to home to be able to get me back and forth and transport me. But while I was in Starkville jail, they had investigators come to meet with me and said to talk to me about the sexual assault that I had went through while I was in the Noxubee jail.
So you filed who brought their attention to your sexual assault?
My lawyer.
You're okay. Go ahead.
I had an investigator come and talk to me and said, "You have 15 years worth of contraband over your head right now. Now, if you go ahead and tell us how you got the phones in, who brought them in, we'll go ahead and get that off of you."
Yeah.
So, of course, I just got told I was going home. I didn't want to sit another day in jail.
Of course not.
Went ahead and told them everything that I knew.
Right.
And they said, "Well, we're going to open up a federal case and we're going to follow up with you when you get out."
Okay.
So when I got out, moved in with my mother in Tupelo, Mississippi, and the investigators had came to my house and said, "We need to actually have," since they were unable to, the phones they collected off of me, the contraband phones, had nothing in them because the sheriff was making sure I kept them deleted. I would have to bring my phone to him in his office every other day to make sure everything was deleted. So nothing was on the phone, so they couldn't find anything. So they didn't have anything to build their case with. So that's when he said, "We want you to have a phone call with Vance right now while you're here at home and try to get him to admit to this." Everything
Vance is the deputy, right?
He's the deputy, yes.
Wonder why they didn't want you to call Grassari or Grassery.
That I don't know. They said they had got into one of my Facebook messengers I had set up at the time, so they might have had everything they needed.
Oh, yeah, they get into everybody's. Go ahead.
Right. So I went on Facebook Messenger. I messaged Vance and just told him, "Hey, I'm out of jail. Would you like to talk and everything?" And whenever he had called, they had told me to tell him that I was pregnant, so we could get. They were just, making up something.
Conversation, right?
So I had sent him a fake ultrasound picture and everything on Messenger saying we need to talk as soon as possible, and had the phone call. He did admit to, while he was picking me up from Clay County Jail to take me to doctor's appointments the first year I was arrested, and take back and forth, transport me from court to doctor's appointments. We were stopping at his mother's house in Brooksville and having sex in her bedroom.
Oh, my God. Where was his mother during all this?
I think she works at the courthouse, so it worked.
Imagine that.
Yeah. So, because during those transporting, I was, of course, getting tobacco and cell phones and everything that I needed. He was making sure he had
them. What about drugs? Could you get drugs in there?
No, sir, I didn't. I could have. I did.
I mean, was anybody getting drugs in there that you know of?
Of course, in West Point, yeah. If you had sex with the guards and the trustees, you can get anything you wanted.
Eddie Scott's jail, you can get drugs.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, you're not the first to tell me that.
They were getting meth.
He's still the sheriff.
Yep, still the sheriff. That blows my mind. That absolutely blows my mind.
Well, we're going to hopefully. Within the next 6 to 12 months, we can change some of this stuff. Go ahead.
Right. I hope so. We were stopping at his mother's house, so we got him to admit to that, and we got him to admit to all the other times we had met up and had sex in the jail and everything like that. They built the case. We had they said, we'll be in touch with you. We're gonna go ahead and formally charge them, indict them, and do everything we need to take them to court. And
Now, this is MBI telling you this, right?
the FBI,
Okay. FBI.
This is the FBI, yes, and the
Okay.
feds. Yes, they were assuring me that I would have justice from this, that they were going to serve so many years in prison and for everything they did to me. So I felt, relieved and closure.
Sounded good, didn't it?
Yes, I felt like I was finally getting my closure.
Yeah.
While they were building that case, I did file a civil suit for the sexual assault.
Yeah.
With me and my lawyer and another lawyer, built a civil suit and settled in court, got the money back and everything like that.
Which wasn't hardly anything.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing at all. But yeah, they were keeping in touch with me, let me know they indicted the Terry Grasser and Vance Phillips, and they asked me if about the other deputies that were sleeping with me as well. It was one of that was never even charged, brought to court, or anything. There was still one more out there. And anyways, they finally went to court, and I felt like, this is the day I'm going to get my closure. I'm so excited, and my family was praying. We were all finally getting our closure from this.
Right.
And anyways, I got a phone call from the FBI. His name is Adam. He kept in touch with me about everything. He texted me. He texted me, asked if he could call me to let me know what the sentencing was for Vance Phillips. He said they gave him 8 months house arrest, probation, and 1 day in jail.
Wow.
1 day.
And the sheriff didn't get charged, did he?
No, that's the thing. They never even got charged for the sexual assault.
Did the sheriff resign, or did he lose the election?
I think they fired them both, and they can no longer work.
They can't fire them. They have to. Well, I mean, they can remove them.
Oh, okay.
They can.
Well, I know that they can't work in law enforcement anymore, but they had told me they had charged them with bribery and lying to the FBI about everything. Not even
that was probably a plea bargain, and they had to leave office and all that. But they never saw a day in jail. Well, the deputy saw 1 day in jail.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I read the article. It just felt like a punch just a stab in the gut. I felt sick to my stomach and disgusted after I read the article that the judge had said this in my own words, and it's out there for the public to read. They can back me on this.
Who's the judge?
That I don't know. I had no idea. I had nobody there to represent me. They didn't tell me anything like that.
I wish I thought
me too.
It's in the Northern District, so I would think it was in the Northern District.
Jackson. It was in Jackson.
Oh, it was in Jackson. So in the I guess the Central or Southern District, maybe Central District.
In his exact words, he said, "I was not a victim, and that I was not raped," was how he pretty much.
In other words, they're trying to say it was consensual.
Yeah.
It was, and that's a discussion for another day. You didn't have any choice.
No.
But the point is that it was illegal for them to hold you hostage and demand that you had sex with them in order to maintain your privileges.
Right.
That they had illegally provided.
But not only to maintain my privileges, but also because the sheriff was known for beating the inmates and had threatened me with that several times as well. He takes you into a holding cell, which is in the jail, a holding cell with no cameras.
Like Lee County, Mississippi does that.
Strip down to your boxers.
Yeah.
They have wooden sticks with orange tape wrapped around them, and they beat you. Really? And then you don't eat either, because while I was cooking there at the jail, a set of boys had just gotten beat, and he told me to not make them a tray. So, of course, I did not make them a tray, and this went on for 3 days. They did not have any food.
The sheriff told you not to feed them.
Yes, the sheriff told me not to feed them.
Folks, if this doesn't If this doesn't make you mad and get you fired up about these corrupt pathetics with criminals with badges, nothing will. If this is a systemic root of corruption that runs through every sheriff's department in the state of Mississippi until somebody proves me wrong. I've yet to talk to people from a county. They said this is not going on. This is the kind of behavior, but they have no oversight, Lane. They are free to do whatever they want to do. And you have the Attorney General, Lynn Fitch, which is about the biggest fraud that ever held office in this state, will not do anything. She won't pursue them. And when they do, it's just a token of saying we're trying to do something and we're going to hold these people. That is a lie. And then the Department of Justice, what are they doing? A day in jail and house arrest. And so Grassery is walking around free. This is a man that's responsible for torturing, beating, raping, and everything else. And I don't know how long he was a sheriff. 15, 20 years, wasn't it, Lane?
Yes.
This has been going on for 15, 20 years.
And that was the thing the judge made it out, because I gave my impact statement to the FBI to read aloud to Terry Grassery and Vance Phillips before they were sentenced, and told them that it did heavily impact me mentally to this day, where I'm
sure
the
it
day
did.
Out of jail had to receive intense therapy, several emergency room visits for like having really bad panic attacks, and just pretty much made me out to be a joke, that it was consensual, that I was just this pretty much like a whore and a drug addict and everything, which is complete opposite. But yeah, the beatings and everything, it pretty much making me out to be a liar, which all of these things that have happened are online and are true for you to read, and I'm just glad I wasn't one of the ones that had to get beaten like that. But God knows it probably would have happened if I didn't give them what they wanted.
Well, we may never know. And hopefully, Lane, after we air this, other people will come forward and their story can be heard.
That's exactly what I said
because the victims, and I'm going to tell you, Lane, I know that you probably feel that they've treated you as a nobody. And I'm one of those nobodies. It doesn't matter. And when one of these nobodies dies in these county jails, and it happens all the time, too often, there'll be a little article in the newspaper. A local fake media might mention it. They'll say whatever the sheriff tells them to say. That's the story, and it's done with. Protocol is for MBN, Mississippi Bureau, MBI, Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, investigate these deaths and so forth. And they just co-sign with whatever is said. Nothing ever comes of any of it. And everything else is swept under the rug. I really, this is, it's horrible, Lane, that you went through this. And this is something that you'll carry to your grave with you. And I'm sure you don't trust law enforcement now.
At all. That's another thing I said in my statement, that these people, we look to them to keep us safe and protect us, and I don't even trust law enforcement now.
Of course not.
And because they're supposed to be responsible. They take an oath, to keep us safe. And it's just,
they put their hand on a Bible, honey, and they swear an oath, and all of them, it's a joke. They lie. They told a lie when they took that oath. They put their hand on a Bible in most cases, a Bible they've never read.
Right.
And swore to a God they don't believe in. to uphold and protect the Constitution that they hate. And these are the kind of tyrants that people keep going to the polls and pulling a lever for.
Right.
I'm telling you, people that are hearing this, when you hear these stories about these sheriffs in these counties, and you hear the stories, especially the ones that we're reporting the things that they're doing, and you're still going down there and voting for them, you're just as culpable and responsible for that as the one doing it. You've got blood on your hands. The way we make a difference is we put people in office and we hold them accountable. And they don't like this, Lane, is when we ask questions and when we talk about it, they hate it. And they will do everything, and they've done everything and still continue to do everything to shut me up. They hate free speech. They hate this exposure. Yep. And so after all this is said and done, nearly 5 years incarcerated for a crime you didn't commit. And because they went through the process and indicted you, and because of qualified immunity and judicial immunity, there's nothing lame that you can do. I mean, that's just your life, that much time down the drain. And while you were there, the very ones that we hold to a higher standard were the very ones committing the crimes with the sex, the contraband, and with others, the illegal drugs, and it continues. Now, any of these individuals that were involved in this deal with you in Noxubee County, is any of them still working for the sheriff's department, or do you know?
I don't believe so, no.
Well, they've probably gone to Lowndes County and got a job.
Probably, yeah.
Now, unless that's part of the deal with the feds, but the feds didn't charge all of them. They charged Vance. He was the only one that got charged.
The sheriff did too, with the same charge though, bribery and lying to the FBI.
Bribery and lying to the FBI, but none of them got charged for the sexual assault.
Nope.
Yeah. Wow. How about that? Folks, that's alarming. That's alarming. And so what are you doing now, Lane? I mean, you've had to start your life over. Tell me what's going on now and what your plans are moving forward.
I'm married. I have 3 children, 3 beautiful girls. Well, 5 if you count my stepdaughters. And I'm working as a CNA right now. Have a really good job. Still having to do a lot of therapy behind everything, and it's still something I think about, dream about, I have severe nightmares about, but I try not to let it affect my day-to-day life. But I just hope that anybody else that's going through it, don't have the fear of staying quiet to speak up. Because
is that your message to the other victims? And I know there's countless victims, not just in Mississippi, but across this country, male and female. What is your message to them?
Just because the justice system that's so just crazy corrupt failed me and has failed others, just to speak up and try to at least try, and don't let them keep you quiet, to get your story out there any way you can and expose these people.
Amen. Amen. Well, Lane, I appreciate you. And I know that that the people watching this appreciate you. And you're in our prayers. You're in my prayers.
Thank you.
And I'm asking other people to keep her and her family in your prayers as well. So how do you move forward and recover from this, folks? I don't know. I know that it's unfathomable to imagine that these things are going on in 2024. But this is real. It's really happening. And I'm going to continue to expose it. And we're going to continue to call out their names and their crimes. And for these elected officials and for these law enforcement agencies that are tasked with overseeing this type of corruption, and when you don't do anything about it, we're going to talk about that as well. We're going to expose that as well. And we're not going to keep quiet about it. Lane, I appreciate you. And just trust God and just know that you're not alone. And there's people out here that do care. And there are some good people, I'm convinced, within law enforcement. Many of them are afraid to step out of line and go against that blue wall of silence and stand up. But I'm telling you, for those that are in these law enforcement agencies that sit by silently, knowing it's going on, maybe you're not participating, but you know what's going on, and you're not saying anything about it, just know you might as well be participating in it. Because if you're worried about your job and your safety and you're in that position, you should have thought about that before you took the job. Because you put your job and that commitment and that oath is your number one priority, not your personal aspirations or ambitions or whatever it may be. Folks, I'm going to wrap it up. Lane, I appreciate you. I'm here if you need me. And folks, remember, share, subscribe, and until next time, God bless you.
Thank you.